Ba, ba da 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 da. Hello, everyone. Here we are with Round 2 of Tuttle Boy King. Let's get started. Oh, Pennsylvania. If you can be nearly sacrificed there, you can be nearly sacrificed anywhere.
Nothing stirs the imagination quite like the jewelry of antiquity, and the Egyptians towered over all the other ancients in craftsmanship. They did splendid work, diverse in color and form, amulets, rings, collars, heavy gold, surpassing the Scythians, the Sumerians, the Greeks, a cascade of jewel finery for 3,000 uninterrupted years. Put yourself in Carter's shoes for a moment as he opens these treasure chests for the first time. A slight tremble in the hand, perspiration on the palm. Not only from the point of view of quantity is the find amazing, Carter reports in the press. The period to which the tomb belongs is the most interesting in the long history of Egyptian art. We are prepared for beautiful things.
Oh, wow. Look at that. Oh, this is so cool.
Carter's words again. Within a yard of one of the rooms off the burial chamber stood what appeared to be a solid wall of gold. Astounding sight. Entombed in darkness for 3,000 years. Now, coming out of the void for the first time, 4 freestanding goddesses of the dead. Gracious figures with arms outstretched. So beautiful, writes Carter, so compassionate. And this speaker admits that he's hopelessly in love with one of them. Her name is Selket, a most royal guest of the National Gallery. Behold, she is like a star goddess arising at the beginning of a happy year, of sheen surpassing, of radiant skin, lovely of eyes wherewith to gaze, sweet are her lips wherewith to speak. She hath captured my heart in her embrace. She maketh the necks of all men to be turned away, dazzled at the sight of her. A love poem of the 18th dynasty. It was the Empire period. The young boy on the throne. New styles, new freedoms. Naturalism in art, manners, and dress. The word gaudy might even fly. Love and laughter along the green banks of the Nile. Historians call it New Empire. Wigs worn by both men and women, falling over shoulders in cascades of curls and plaits and braids. Combs, hairpins, scented unguents and lotions, bronze mirrors, depilatories. Vanity, thy name is both man and woman, and the frail and gentle Beryl, as they gone. Here now, a treasure of jewelry from the tomb, a flexible gold collar for the king. Just look at the detail, 250 pieces strung together through tiny gold loops. The feathers are made of glass, in imitation of turquoise, jasper, and lapis lazuli. In each of the talons, the bird grasps the hieroglyphic sign for eternity, which is inlaid with red and blue glass. Glass was a very treasured article in ancient Egypt, and on a par with semi-precious stones. The entire work is in the form of the vulture goddess Nekhbet. Such necklaces were placed on Egyptian mummies not as mere objects of adornment, but to provide magical protection throughout the long journey to the other world. A pectoral with solar and lunar emblems of magical prowess. Isn't it absolutely gorgeous?
It is.
The eye was a very potent amulet in Egypt. It symbolized the god Horus and protected you against sickness. It means healthy and sound. You have a dollar bill in your pocket, you find the eye of Horus on the dollar. Presumably that means the dollar bill is sound. The scarab in the piece represents the sun god, as does a falcon, which you now see zooming up at you. The sun god was the primary deity among many, many gods. In its talons, the falcon holds the signs for life and eternity, which incidentally you see reproduced in modern jewelry today. Both men and women of the Empire period wore jewelry, bracelets, anklets, spectacles, broad collars. The men wore just as much jewelry as the women did. It was a protection against misfortune, and above all against being destroyed by death. And the jewelry was protective equipment, surrounded by the gods who simply eased it to that other world on something akin to Cleopatra's barge of gold in an endless sea of euphoria. Shall we go into the boudoir of one of those beautiful and vain Egyptians? This is the case for a hand mirror, in the shape of an arc, which remembers the word for light. But this ubiquitous word also means mirror. An early play on words, for after all, a mirror does reflect light. Before an Egyptian appeared to the day, hours were spent on making up. The better homes had shallow baths. Water was cascaded down from pitchers. Because the sun was always up there, perfumed oils were rubbed into the skin, and great care was given to the eye, often a black eyeliner around it to cut down reflection from the sun.
That's true.
Eyes, heavily lined, had religious significance as well. Some 50 of these were found in the tomb. It's a vase of perfumed unguents, and when Carter found them, most had been emptied by the ancient robbers, the perfume contents being more valuable than the vase itself. The king and queen's cartouche. This alabaster lion is also an unguent jar. The left paw rests on the hieroglyphic symbol for protection. It's beautifully sculptured. This particular jar still held its original contents, and they were pine-scented. A pine aftershave for a young king. That protruding tongue is symbolic, not what you think it means at all. Animals with tongues out reflect gaiety and laughter and joy of living. And very likely, a little boy's sense of humor. History, jars and vessels in the shape of animals were quite common, but they seem to have gone out of style until the 18th dynasty. This ibex is another unguent jar. It's carved of alabaster, but the horns, only one of which was found, are real animal horns. The body was hollowed out to hold the scented unguent. These two vessels, the lion and the ibex, seem to reflect the time, a new freedom in the land of Egypt. Joie de vivre. You see it in the artwork of the friezes, the sculpture, a blooming, overpowering lust for life. Clothing of Egyptians was always sparse. The mean summer temperature in the Nile Valley remains a constant 100 plus today. Silk and cotton were unknown. The men wore long skirts. Linen was the fabric, and this is the pattern for today's sandal. 4,000 years of foot comfort. In general, dress was comfortable, but the tendency in the new kingdom of this 18th dynasty was toward the elaboration of flowing lines of garments. For example, the gown of Selkut with its folds and pleats of diaphanous linen. You ladies realize, of course, the discovery of the statue by Carter and the press coverage that it got in the 20s changed the style of women's nightgowns for 30 years. One wonders if the sculptor of this ancient masterpiece was influenced by the features and form of the young king's wife, Countess Anna.
Maybe. Commercial, I guess.
This is one of the most fabulous beauties of all history.
Nefertiti.
The legendary Queen Nefertiti. Now this, of course, is a portraiture not found in Tutankhamun's tomb, but it's been reproduced by the thousands, and she may be on the desk in your study. Actually, we don't know too much about her.
I wish I had a
Except that she was
reproduction.
thief, probably, and that she was the mother-in-law of the young King Tut, and the mother of Ankhesenamen. Ankhesenamen, a royal name. And she rose to a majesty beyond her years when the young pharaoh died, as we'll discover when a fragment of the puzzle drops into place. Her adoring hands touch his so intimately that each must know most hidden thoughts. They were young, sensual, glowing with a golden affection. It was a love poem from Ankhesenamen, written to the young pharaoh. I am unto thee like the acre which I have planted with flowers and all manner of sweet-smelling herbs. And in the acre is a pool. In the cool of the north wind it is a lovely place where I walk. Thine hand upon mine, and my body satisfied, and my heart glad at our going together. It is intoxicating to hear thy voice, and my life depends upon hearing thee. Whenever I see thee, it is better to me than food and drink. Most people working on excavations confess to a feeling almost of embarrassment when they break into a chamber sealed by pious hands so many centuries ago. You see a finger mark on the leg of a folding stool, and it looks as if it were put there yesterday. But you know that yesterday was 3,000 years ago, and time is annihilated by this intimate detail. Suddenly you know you're an intruder. Both artistically and technically, this wooden chest is one of the most important works of art found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. We'll bring it in very close so you can see the finely textured painted ivory panels. Quite apart from the art, which reflects the preceding period in Egyptian history, is the theme of this painting. Kings and queens are usually shown as partners in some sort of activity, but here, Ankhesenamen is almost subservient. It's a very personal view of their life together. Another insight perhaps into the affection they had for one another. She's handing him fruit with a bouquet of flowers. Note of bearing, direct, queenly, yet graceful and mobile.
Exquisite.
Ankhesenamen was a recent innovation, a very long lock of hair worn over the left side and down the body. Some articles in the royal household. an elegant flask made of the finest alabaster.
Oh, wow. What is
An
that?
ivory headrest, an Egyptian pillow.
Oh,
Everyone
yeah.
had his own made to order. Shu, the god of air, holds the head above the earth. A vase made of silver, very rare in Egypt. It's a pomegranate, which was quite a novelty along the Nile and introduced from Asia. An oil lamp, carved from a single piece of alabaster. Can you see the 3 cups burning of an evening in some shadowed hallway in the chamber of the royal couple? An unguent jar for the king, with a lively lion on its lid. It was believed that if you surround the pharaoh with such symbols of power and majesty and virility, they will become attributes. And what better place to ensure these attributes than on articles of everyday use? An unguent flask was as common as are cold cream jars, and the magic of symbolism is important when your king is a boy. And not at all well, some say, ill-suited to the rigors of climate and office. A chest found on the floor of the antechamber is filled with miscellaneous things, knives, baskets, and so forth. Perhaps it was a personal chest of Tutankhamun's. The bands at hieroglyphs are guarantees, promising, among other things, that his eyes and ears will be opened and that heaven will receive his soul. There are retractable handles at the base, and when they're extended, they allow the chest to be moved from room to room in the palace, the king's pleasure. But very soon the chest will move from palace to tomb. I find this to be one of the most touching yet poignant artifacts to be uncovered by Mr. Crocker. And the fact that it's here among the burial materials is further evidence of the nature of this boy. It's a game. 4 like this were found in the tomb. Nothing is known for certain about the rules of play. And the game is called Senate, and seems to resemble the modern game of Parcheesi. All of this ancient woodwork is fascinating, dovetail joints, 2,000 years old. Inscriptions and glyphs are rather mundane, wishing the king life and prosperity and employing such epithets as beautiful of birth, precious offspring, strong bull, and other such wishful endowments. Exquisite craftsmanship. Looking for all the world like an expensive game of a drawing room of a 20th century tycoon. Very difficult to believe when you look at it, that the game was actually played in palaces and homes 3,000 years ago. Now there's a lovely Egyptian poem, and again, Anke Sanavan comes to mind. It's in story form. This is a fairly literal translation. The words brother and sister is somewhat misleading. In ancient Egypt, lovers were called brothers and sisters.
That's true.
Here it is. My beloved brother, my heart burneth for thy love. I say to thee, behold what I do. I am come to catch birds, with my net in my hand in my cage. How I long for thee, that we might go to the marshes together. How good it were if thou shouldst be with me to wait for that singing bird with feathers. How lovely it is to go to the meadow unto ever with beloved. The voice of the lark calleth out, but love of thee holdeth me back. I will lay down my net. Now then, my mother will say, hast thou caught no bird today? Thy love carried me on. The breath of thy nostrils is that alone which maketh my heart to live.
And obviously, yeah, well, the commercial would have been for television.
Night shades are closing, tomb shadows move, but the dark is not light enough, and the cause of the young king's death is as mysterious today as the facts surrounding his birth. It might have been a natural death. He was a frail child. Was it murder? There's slim evidence of that.
That's
An
true.
accident? Possibly. He wasn't 19 when he died, that's all we know for sure.
Broken leg.
Beating of the chest and sobs of mourning in the valley of the Nile, and the young and childless Ankhes and Amun comes to grips with an ominous threat to her crown. There are those who would wrest it from her. We still have her letter addressed to the king of the Hittites. My husband is dead, writes the queen, and I have no son. Do you have a grown-up son? Send me one, and I will make him king of Egypt. But no new king for Ankhes and Amun. Figures of deities, such as this cobra, were made to help the king through the mysterious and often treacherous underworld. Egyptians believed in a world somewhere to the west. And this new land would be like Egypt in every way. But there were trials along the path, and you had to be able to give correct answers to demons who would ask questions. This is the Pharaoh, now the sun god, passing through the turbid waters of the unknown, bringing a moment of light to all the inhabitants. In this excellent piece of sculpture work, the young king is about to harpoon a hippopotamus, Seth, the god of evil, on that long and arduous journey through the underworld. But the god of evil is not shown as it might be a source of danger to the king in the tomb. This is a Shawapti, an Egyptian alter ego, a tiny 12-inch slave that labors for you in the other world. If Osiris commands, cut the wheat fields, a Shawapti does it. I'm quoting out in the Book of the Dead, Shawapti instructions. O thou Shawapti, if thou art commanded to do what must be done of various kinds of work, speak up and say, here I am. And so, preparations are made in the tomb of Tutankhamun for eternal life, according to classical rites established at the time of the gods. A series of natural but uncommonly bizarre events took place following the discovery of the tomb. Lord Carnarvon died from a septic insect bite. 2 others connected with the team would succumb. Newspapers began calling it the mummy's curse, labeled preposterous by the scientific expedition.
It is.
Clearly the work of Anubis echoes the bath, the golden phoenix. Anubis, the jackal god of embalming, is represented here in a most eerie emblem made of gilded wood. It depicts a headless animal skin attached to a pool in an alabaster base. Now the magic of Anubis was powerful, essential for mummification, a religious rite of great importance to an ancient Egyptian. For without a body there could be no resurrection, and for eternal life resurrection was a practical necessity. A pharaoh's mummy was very sacred. To have it destroyed or lost was a disastrous fate. The appointed day approaches. A procession of sacred animal heads, priests symbolizing gods, mourners and coffins, winds its way on a long journey from the palace to the Valley of the King. This stopper, it's about the size of your hand, is a lid to one of 4 jars. An exquisite portraiture of Tutankhamun at the time of his death. A beautifully carved likeness in alabaster. Miraculously, in those 70 days of mourning, craftsmen turn out such splendid works of art as this. Lids to the beautiful canopic jars. Such jars contain mummified internal organs of the pharaoh. They are sealed and placed in the tomb. A man has perished and his corpse has become dust. All his kindred have crumbled to dust. But writings cause him to be remembered in the mouth of the reciter. This and the small miniature coffin of gold which we show you next were very sacred vessels. The mummified contents have long since decomposed. He was Pharaoh, God to his people, slain or dead of natural causes, before the zenith of his boyhood, mourned by a multitude of grateful subjects who lavishly stuccoed his burial chamber with gold. Yet he moves unnoticed, obscure, throughout the recorded years of antiquity, until a step is uncovered by an inquisitive scholar, searching for the jagged fragments of the puzzle. Have we disturbed your rest, young man? Has the careful examination of your ancient bones deflected a voyage of some 3,000 years? Is the car still moving on that tranquil sea? Or was it all so planned by Isis and Osiris millennia ago that a boy would show us his picture book with his colored brass and alabaster and gold? The 20th century looks back in wonder. We may be, for all our posturing, but a passing footnote in the documents of civilized man. From the National Gallery in Washington, touring Chicago, New Orleans, Los Angeles, Seattle, and finally, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. We hope you've enjoyed this hour of introspection, the dazzling beauty of ancient Egypt, the richest archaeological find known to man. A final moment of contemplation, an early Egyptian grace note in the distant music of the Nile. God be between you and harm in all the empty places you must go. Good night.
Yeah, this was really good. Might watch another Tutankhamun related thing next week. Anyway, see ya!